Hi everyone, I hope you're all keeping safe and well. We're going to be looking at Microsoft Forms today. If I just drag my screen in, there we go. I'll just give it a couple of minutes for any others who want to come in. In the meantime, if any of you have got any questions while I'm doing this event, if you move the mouse over the screen, you'll see some icons appear in the top right. One of them's for a Q&A. So if you click on that, you can actually ask a question. I will see that, but I've also got my colleague Chris, he's also monitoring that as well. But yeah, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the Q&A, and I'll either raise them in the feed or we'll get back to you on there. If you joined us for the Teams live event a week or so ago, then same rules apply. The trees over the road from my house are still shedding pollen. I've still got hay fever, so I'll try not to cough and splutter on the mic. I'll try and mute the mic if I do have to cough and splutter, but please excuse me if I do. Yeah, I'm just suffering really badly with hay fever at the minute. Okay, what we'll do then, we'll make a little start. So, Microsoft Forms. There's actually two parts to it. There are forms and quizzes, but we'll get onto that in a second. To get onto Forms and to do pretty much everything in Forms, you actually use a web browser. So you don't need to download an app or anything like that. And the people who are filling in your form or your quiz don't have to download an app. It's all done through a web browser. So if you want to design a form or a quiz, go to a web browser and just go to office.com and then log in. And what you'll do is you'll get this sort of hub here. You'll get to see this more and more because Microsoft are kind of directing you towards this hub. And you'll see one of my options there is Forms. Or I can click on the 9 little boxes in the top left and Forms will be there. Or I can click on All Apps if it's not there and Forms will be there. Alternatively, you can just go to forms.microsoft.com, log in with your school email address and password, and you'll get this page. So as you can see, you can do a new form or a new quiz. The difference between them: a form is what do people feel, and a quiz is what do people know. That's essentially the difference. Obviously, there's a little bit of crossover, but if you look at them like that, you'll be okay. What I did last week was I did a dummy form and a dummy quiz, and I handed them over to the services team, and I said, "Can you just fill these in and have a bit of fun with it, please?" So what we're actually going to do is kind of dive straight in, have a look at a completed form and a completed quiz. And then we're going to see how we construct it and how we work with it afterwards. So here's a form. As you can see, a form to gauge some feedback. So if I click on there, you'll see this is actually the design of the form. So this is how you design the form. But like I say, we'll get to that in a second. I'll just show you what we did for this one. You can see this is what's your name. Have you ever travelled outside of the EU? Yes or no? Very important question. Please rank these chocolate bars with your favourite being at the top and your least favourite at the bottom. How likely are you to recommend the last meal you had to others? And you can see that that's not at all likely and extreme likely, what they call a net promoter score. And then you have how much do you agree with the following statements? And you've got these strongly disagree to strongly agree about home broadband provider, the last shop, whether you add value for money. That's what they call a Likert scale. It's spelt Likert, but it is actually, I am assured, pronounced Likert. Then you've got one, if you could pick a date for the football to resume, what would it be? And then you've got a date. And then how would you rate this form on 1 to 10 using stars? Now, as you can see at the top, we've had 11 responses. So if I click on there, you'll see now that it gives me a breakdown of these responses. So I've had 11. It's took an average of 2 minutes 38 seconds. It's currently active. And it starts giving me a breakdown. So you can see, have you ever travelled to a country outside of Europe? 8 people have said yes, 3 people have said no. And you see, it gives us a nice little bar chart. Please rank these chocolate bars with your favourite being at the top, your least favourite at the bottom. For some reason, the eServices team like Whispers above Twix. I don't know. I think that's a disciplinary myself. How likely are you to recommend the last meal you had to others? As you can see, we've had 4 say high yes, 4 say low no, and 3 in the middle. So it has gone with a net promoter score of 0 because it is pretty much bang in the middle. Then, as you can see, how much do you agree with or disagree with the following statements? We're obviously much happier with our own broadband than we are with the value for money on the last shop that we went to. What date would you get football to start? You can see some latest responses there. And then the average rating on that form was 8.5. Excuse me. What I can also do is if I click view results, it will show me respondent 1, how long it took them to complete it, and then what they filled in. So I can see what that person filled in. I can then click on the arrow and go to the next person. So as you can see, I don't just get a rundown of what everyone has put in. I can actually have individual rundowns as well. I can also click open in Excel, and it takes all that information, puts it in an Excel spreadsheet and lets you download it so you can run reports and things on Excel. If I go back to forms, so I'll just click forms at the top. If we now look at our quiz, our Thursday afternoon eServices test, again, 11 responses. So you can see I'm asking here the name. Is a Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit? It's a very controversial question, but it is a cake. Then we've got to put the films in order of release. And then what temperature does water boil at? And they have to enter an answer. So if I go to responses, you'll see again, I could see who answered cake, who answered biscuit. There's some people who were just wrong. I can also go in, review answers and those sort of things. I'm going to leave it there for now on the quiz, and you'll see why in a bit. But that's essentially what we're doing. So we'll go back to our form. You'll see that now it's been designed. If I preview it, you'll see at the top I can preview computer or mobile, and it'll show me what it'll look like on a mobile. Okay, so it seems like I've thrown you in at the deep end, but you'll see why I've explained that at the start in a second. So forms. We'll start with a form rather than a quiz, as that's easier. So we'll just do new form. Like I say, it's all done through the web browser. You don't need to download any apps. So untitled form. We'll just call this got my caps lock on, test form. And I can enter a description if I wanted to there. You'll also see I've got this icon here, which is a picture. What I can do is insert an image. Now, you can upload one if you wanted to. You can connect to your OneDrive, and if there's a picture on your OneDrive, you can use that. Or you can do a Bing image search. There's a lot of criticism for Bing. Just point out about the image search. If we just do, say, Canuck Chase, you'll see what it gives us here is a tick box. Search results show images tagged with Creative Commons licenses. Technically, everything online is copyrighted. If people take a photo, it is their copyright. If you do a search with Bing Images, you can choose Creative Commons licenses, and it means that the images you use, you can use them legally in the form. You've got the right to use them. and it's always good to respect copyright. So if you want to put an image in, you can do it there. I'll just add one so you can see what it looks like. I'll just click add and it will pop it into the form. So we've got our form title, we've got our description. Now it's time to add some questions. So if I click add new, I've got some options now. Choice is obviously a multiple choice. Text is just a line of text or a block of text. Rating, if I just click on rating, this was the star rating that you saw earlier. So I can have between 1 and 10, and I can have stars or numbers. I'll just click the bin to get rid of that question. Date is just literally a date. And then I've got the little arrow at the end where I've got some more options. And then I've got these rankings, which was the one where I put with the chocolate bars, where you can rank them up and down. The Likert scale. I can upload a file or get the person to upload a file if I wanted to. I've then got the Net Promoter Score, and then I've got section. For now, we'll just go with a text. So what you need to ask yourself right at the start of creating the form, who is going to fill this form in? Is it going to be people in your school? For instance, staff, students? Is it going to be parents? Are you going to be pushing it out onto your social media platforms for the wider public to fill in? The reason you have to decide this is you need to say who's going to see the form. If it's internal, if it's the staff, then you've got other options open to you than if it was external. So what I'm going to do, again, it feels like we're diving in at the deep end, but you'll see why I'm showing you this now. If we click on the 3 little dots in the top right and settings, you'll see I've got this who can fill in this form. Anyone with a link, so that's the wider public, or only people in my organisation. Now, when it says that, it means people within the Microsoft Office 365 tenancy. So if you're supported by eServices, that's any of the schools that we support that we do the Office 365 for. If you're Wolverhampton Council, this will be wolverhampton.gov.uk accounts. If you're from a university, it'll be your university accounts. But anyone outside the university or outside the account wouldn't be able to see it. So only people in my organisation can respond. And if you tick record name, it actually fills in their name and their email address for you. This is important at the start of a form, because if you're going with anyone with the link can respond, you may need to ask, what is your name? Obviously, if you are only people in my organisation, you can tick 1 response per person. For this one, we're going to go with anyone with the link can respond. Okay, so when I go back, the first thing I can do is a question, which is a text, and I can simply say, what is your name? There's the answer. So we've got a couple more options now. Long answer. The only difference this will make is the short answer, the box that the people fill in will be 1 text block height, if you know what I mean. It'll have room for 1 line of text. If you tick long answer, rather, you'll see the box gets bigger, and it means they can actually see more of what they've written. It doesn't actually change how many characters they can enter. They can enter something like 4,000 characters. So yeah, it's quite a lot. So yeah, long answer doesn't change how much they can enter. It just makes the box bigger or smaller. Required is obviously they need to fill this in for the form to be accepted. And then again, we've got the 3 little dots for the menu. Subtitle, I could just enter a little bit more information about that question if I wanted to. I can then do restrictions. So I can start restricting things. Now, can be okay if you're expecting a number to go in and it needs to be within certain ranges. That works out quite well. You do need to be careful putting restrictions in. And we'll see why when we get to quizzes a little bit later on. You'll see where we get some issues. You can also add branching. Now, what this means is when they're filled in question 1, if they put a particular answer in, they can avoid question 2 and go directly to question 3. This can work really well for multiple choice. Like one of the questions I had earlier, have you ever been outside of a European country? If they put yes, you can then ask them which country. If they put no, you can just avoid that question and go to the next one. So yes, you've got this branching as well. Once that's done, you'll see I've got like the little paper bin icon where I can just delete the question. I can also copy it. So if I'm doing a similar sort of question, again, I can just copy it. But for now, we'll just go with adding a new one. You'll notice now that it starts giving us some options. Because you've added your name, it's saying, well, do you want to ask them what their organisation is, or what their email address is, or their phone number? When you do this, it may come up with different questions. This is sort of the AI in the background working things out for you. So we will go with, yeah, let's have them pop their email address in. Tick as many as I want and then just add selected. So you see it's actually put the question in for me. You'll notice there's a little red asterisk next to what is your name. That's because we've got it as required. And what is your email address? There isn't the red asterisk because the required is off. But again, for this one, we'll make it required. We'll add a new one. And we'll go for a multiple choice. So multiple choice questions, very common in these sort of things. We could say, what is your age range? We can go 0 to 16, 17 to 25. So you'll see we've put 2 in. I can delete either of these options if I wanted to. I can then add another option. So I can go 26 to 40 and then add another option, 40 plus. I can also add other, but obviously for age, you're not going to have an other, but you have got the option. So as you can see, our form is starting to come together. If we click on preview, we can see there's our picture, the way it's coming. There's our questions. That's how it looks like on a computer. That's how it looks like on a mobile phone. It's as simple as that. I've also got this thing called theme. And you'll see I can change the colours. So if I just preview it there, you'll see that it's now gone to that reddy orangey colour. I've also got some pictures. Just can make it a little bit more friendly. And you even have some themes, so you can actually bring pictures in again from Bing Images if you wanted to. If you're very good with your hexadecimal colours, you can actually put a hexadecimal colour code in there and it will change the background to the hex colour. So yeah, we can change the way the form looks if we wanted to. What we can also do, if I click on one of the questions, you'll see I've also got the up and down arrow keys. Obviously, I needed 3 or 4 questions in here to show you this, but if I click the up arrow, you'll see that it's now going, what is your name, what's your age range, and then the email address. And then if I click the down arrow, it's what's your name, email address, and then your age. So you can see it just reorders the questions. As you can see there as well, I can click on a question. I can very easily edit it if I want to. Before now, we will go and add another question. We'll do a date. So what we can say here is, what is your date of birth? Obviously, in the real world, we wouldn't ask what their age was and their date of birth. It would be pointless. But just to give you an idea, again, it's required. Again, I can put subtitles and branching in there if I want to. And if I preview that, you'll see that when they actually click on that box, it actually comes up with the calendar, and they can actually pick a date from the calendar. We'll add a new question. And I'll do ranking. So for this question, this is a kind of ordering question. So which is most important, which is the best, which is the worst, those sort of things. We'll do a very simple one. What is your favorite games console? And we'll just go PS4, Switch, Xbox, spell it correctly. Again, required. Again, I can put subtitles and branching in there if I wanted to. And if I preview, you'll see I've got the option there. I can do up and down with the arrows at the side, or I can actually grab hold of it and move them around like that. Now, this is where it's kind of important to think about how your users are going to interact with the form. So on a mobile, these sort of questions are really good because you can just drag them with your finger. What you need to be aware of, and what I'll do is I'll just go back to the earlier form. Was it that one? Sorry, that one. Okay, the chocolate bars. So if we preview this, I asked there, please rank your chocolate bars with your favourite being at the top and the least favourite at the bottom. A few people said to me, why isn't Whisper Gold in there, Dave? Why isn't this in there? Why isn't that in there? If you think about it, if this is a list of about 25 different things and you're trying to order them and you're trying to move something from the bottom to the top, and you're either having to press the button several times or you're trying to drag it up either on the screen or on a mobile phone screen with your finger, it will be just insufferably horrible. Things will be flying all over the place. It will just be so annoying to the user. So what you need to do when you're doing these ranking ones is think about how many are going to be on the screen, and make it so that you're not going to drive your user potty, moving things up and down, 25 different items. So yes, 3, 5, 6, that's about right. As soon as you start it in 10, 12, 15, it's too much, and it will just become too frustrating for the users. Okay, the other one, this Likert, or Likert as everyone pronounces it, but it is. I am assured it is pronounced Likert. I'm sure you've seen these in forms before. You usually have a strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree, and then you'll have a statement, and the people tick whatever box they want. As you can see, you can just add as many statements as you want. You can also add options. So I can have a 6th option. And if you want to get rid of any options, as you can see when you click on them, you can just click on the bin and it will get rid of it. Again, click on the statement. You can click on the bin and it will get rid of the statement. So you can add as many statements or options as you want, and you can format that how you want as well. Again, subtitle and branching. The next one is the Net Promoter Score. So I like to do the Net Promoter Score and the Likert ones together. This is a how likely are you to recommend something. So as you can see, we've got a 0 to 10, not at all likely, extremely likely. Excuse me. Now, you may find, or you may think, well, doesn't that kind of ask the same question as that? So is a net promoter score the same as a Likert? And I suppose in a way, yes, kind of. Marketing people will go into the intricacies of exactly what the differences are. And when you actually get to pulling the data out into Excel, you may find that the net promoter score is better than the Likert one, but that kind of depends what you're doing. And then the final one is the rating, which was simple enough. How would you rate this form? So I can have as many stars as I want, or I can have it turned into a number if I wanted to as well. Again, required subtitle. Label is just that you can say that 1 star is bad, 10 stars is good, or the other way around if you wanted to. And then, of course, the branching. So that's very simply how you create a form. To share that form, you, surprise, surprise, click on share. Now, when you do this, take a breath. Just stop and think. Make sure you're doing the right thing. Send and collect responses. Anyone with the link can respond, or again, only people in my organisation. So remember when at the start we went into settings, who can fill in this form? It's there again. Essentially, all it does is creates a long URL. So if I show you this URL, if I just paste this into there, you'll see it's kind of a ridiculous list of random characters. So it's quite a long URL. But all you have to do is distribute that URL. So you can send it in an email. If you're sending this out to parents, for instance, you could send it as a link in parents to teachers, the text messaging service, teacher to parents rather. Other things you can do. If you click on that little box there, it gives you the QR code. What we've had, and in a couple of weeks, we're doing one of these live events on something called Sway. And you can use Sway to do your newsletters in schools, for instance. But QR codes are becoming more and more popular over here. And what a lot of schools are doing is they're printing off the QR codes and putting them on the door where the parents stand to pick up children at the end of the day. And the parents can stand there with the mobile phone and just scan the QR code and fill in the form, or go to the Sway and see the newsletter, for instance. There's also this one, which is the embed code. So if you wanted to put the form on your school website, for instance, you could copy this embed code and send it to the web team, and they will be able to put it on the website. Or if you do your own website, you've just got to copy that into the code. Or you can click on that icon and it will email it to someone. So essentially, it's just that link. Anyone with that link can respond to it, and you'll get answers coming back in. If you set it so only people in my organisation can respond, what will happen is if they're not signed in, it will ask them to sign in with their email address and password. And then, like I say, if you've got in settings record name ticked, it will record their name and email address for you. I can also share this as a template. So obviously, if this becomes a template form, you could just get the link to share it as a template, and then anyone with that link will get a form with all those questions in ready, and then they can change it as they want. If they change it, it won't affect this form, won't affect this original, but they'll have their own version of it. And then if there's a big group of you who want to collaborate on a form, you can see you've got there users with an Office 365 work or school account, or only people in my organisation. The safest bet is people in my organisation, and then copy the link. That means they'll be able to look at this form and edit it. They'll also be able to look at the responses. So what you may find is if you're a member of office staff or teaching staff, you create a form and you want to share the responses with the head teacher, you may do the collaboration and send that link to your head teacher so they can look at the responses. Just have a little drink. And then, like I say, when you've sent out the link and you get your responses, here they all are. Again, I can view the results by respondents, or I can view them all. I can also download it in Excel, and I've got my three little dots again. I could delete all the responses. Very useful if you want to run the same thing again. I can print a summary so that it will just print this page, or I can create a link to a summary. So if you wanted someone to just be able to see this summary without seeing all the responses, you can just create the link and send them that link. So as you can see, this is all fairly simple and user-friendly. One of the things that some people get a bit confused with this, particularly when they go to the preview, is they want things to look kind of very exacting. They want, well, can I have that to be centered, for instance, or can I have this box a bit shorter and these sort of things? The quick answer is no. This is because at the end of the day, you're just sharing a web link and you don't know what device people are going to be looking at this on. They could be looking at it on a laptop, on a tablet that's in portrait, on a tablet that's in landscape, on a mobile phone in portrait or landscape, anything. So it just tries its best to make it look neat, really, and just lays it out for you. So don't feel that you've got to kind of put everything in place for it. It does it for you. So after forms, we'll look at quizzes. So a Friday afternoon test. We'll add a multiple choice. Is Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit? It's that controversial question again. As you can see, it's now trying to offer us some solutions. So can we, if we wanted a yes, no, maybe we could just tick them and it will put those in as options. Obviously for this one we don't. We want cake or we want biscuit. Now with quizzes, we have a few other options. Obviously required, yes or no. Well, yes, it'll be required. Multiple answers, are they allowed to pick more than one answer? Well, obviously for this one, no, they're not. As you can see, we can now go drop downs, maths, but we'll come to that soon, don't worry. Again, subtitles and branching. But what you have to do, because it's a quiz, is you have to pick the right answer. So with Jaffa cake is indeed a cake. So you just tick the tick symbol and it becomes the correct answer. The little speech bubble is a message for the respondent to select this answer. It's up to you whether you kind of say, no, that's wrong. What are you thinking? Or whether you can just give some pointers. Or whether you just leave it blank and let them get on with it and see what happens. It's entirely up to you. Okay. I want to do one now, which is text. And we could say a simple question, what year did NASA land on the moon? Now, we have to enter an answer. So the answer, of course, is 1969. Brilliant. I can now add another answer. This is because if your students are answering this in text, they could type anything in. So for instance, if they just typed in 69, that right or wrong? If they wrote out 1969, and this is where these text fields have a little problem. So let me demonstrate by going back to the quiz I did with eServices. And I said I was going to leave this until later, and this is why. So you can see, this is Jaffa cake, a cake or a biscuit. It's a cake. I've done a ranking, which we'll go to in a second, but this is the question. What temperature does water boil at? So you'll see that I've added 100 C, 100 degrees, 100, 100 degrees Celsius, 100 Celsius, and 100 C. I would also add in as many misspellings of the word Celsius as I could think of, because Celsius isn't the easiest of words to spell. But let me show you what happened. If I go to responses, you'll see three people, sorry, got it wrong. One of them put 100 space C. I'm not sure why it's picked that one as wrong, actually. But these two, you can tell, have got that little degree symbol in. Now, they're right, but the form has marked them as wrong because I didn't set that as an option in there. I didn't put 100 and the little degree symbol. It should be not case sensitive, so that 100C should have still picked up the capital T. But as you can see, when you're adding these text questions into a quiz and you're putting the right answer in, it can be really problematic. You have to allow for every conceivable answer that people could put in. And even then, you're going to miss things out. So really, when you're doing a quiz, it's probably best to avoid text answers. It just becomes far too problematic. So we'll just go back to our test. You'll also see here that I've got points, so I can award points for each question. If I wanted to, we'll just go 1 for that one, and we'll go 1 for that one. So yes, these text ones, very problematic, probably best to avoid. So in reality, what you'd probably do there would be a multiple choice of 67, 68, 69, 70, those sort of things. The other one you can do, now, although you can still do ratings, date, Lickets, net promotion scores, they're not quizzes. You don't set a right answer. The only other one you can actually set an answer for is, as you saw with the chocolate bar one, the ranking. So what you do is just like with the form, you put all the options in, but you put them in the right order. And then it will shuffle them for you when it comes to actually putting that quiz out for people. And again, subtitles and branching if you wanted to. So on the whole, that's basically it. We've got a couple of little options with the test as well, which I will go in with this one. I think I can do this. Yes, I can. If I review the answers, you'll see it will say respondent 0. This is because I allowed this to be anyone with the link. They didn't have to sign in. So again, if you're doing this with your students, you might have this that it's only people in your organisation. The children then have to sign in with their email address and password, and it would record their name and email address for you. But I asked the names. Now, as you can see, I asked the name. There wasn't obviously any points associated to that. It's just the name. Is a cake or a biscuit? Liam said it was a biscuit. Liam, you're wrong. Didn't give you any points. What I can now do is actually give feedback on each question. So I could just type, it really is a cake. I could type in whatever feedback I wanted to. You'll see I asked them to put these films in order. I can't believe you thought Titanic was made after The Matrix. And again, I can put feedback in if I wanted to. And then he got that one right. That's okay. I can then go through and go to the next person and the next person and go through and give feedback on each question. As you can see, I can also give feedback on the actual quiz itself. I can look at individual questions. So I could see 7 people there. Again, if I did recorded their names, as in people in my organisation can see this, I'd have had their names there and what they answered. And again, I could send the feedback there to everyone who answered that question. So you could give individual feedback on each question to each person. You could give group feedback on each question. The power of this is actually quite immense when you think about it. And then when you hit post scores, that actually sends a message to all the people. Again, if they've shared their email address, it sends a message to all the people saying, this is what you've got and here is your feedback. I'll just see if there's anything in the Q&A we need to cover. No, we're okay. So last couple of things before we kind of wrap up. The 3 little dots, settings. When you're doing a quiz, you've obviously got the option to show the results automatically. So when they click on it, it will tell them straight away whether they've got the answers right or wrong. This is for forms and quizzes. Again, we've gone through this. Anyone with a link can respond, or only people in my organisation. Now we've got some options. Accept responses. So if I untick that box, even if people have got the link, they can't do anything. It won't let them fill it in. You can set a start date and an end date. You could shuffle the questions. If you're doing, say, a Friday afternoon quiz and it's only people in my organisation, so they have to sign in, then it might be an idea to shuffle the questions. If someone looks over at someone else's screen, they can't tell which question they're on, that sort of thing. And then when you fill in the form, it just does give you a quick thank you message. You could customise that if you want to. Again, if you've got the only people in my organisation can respond, you can tick send an email receipt to the respondents. Or you can tick get an email notification for each response. When we did the Teams event, I pointed out that there were certain things that were being turned on or off in Teams because of the server load of people working from home. There's actually been something turned off at the moment. One of the options that you sometimes get there is bilingual. This is a little bit confusing. So obviously they've turned it off for server load at the moment. But what the bilingual does, when you click on it, it gives you an option to add other languages, obviously. And what it will do is do that kind of machine learning translation. So if you picked Welsh, the people, when they preview it, it will give them an option at the top of English or Welsh or Polish or German or whatever languages you do, and it will translate for them. Now, let's say you're sending this out to parents. There's another thing that can also happen because they're looking at this in a web browser. If their home language, for instance, is Polish and their phone is set up as Polish, when they look at the page in a web browser, a lot of web browsers will say, this page is in English, do you want me to translate it to Polish for you? And it will do it. So even if you haven't put that option there, they may very well still have it. But if you want to make sure, so if you know for certain you've got some parents who haven't got their phone set that way, and you just want to be certain, you can, when it's turned on by Microsoft, select the bilingual setting and just put the extra languages in. Like I say, it is the kind of machine AI translation, which isn't 100%, but it is getting a lot better. Just see, there's one little thing that's come in. Are you going to cover branching, Dave? I am going to cover branching, yes. So, as I mentioned before, let me just go back to our test form. We've got this branching. There's a couple of ways we can use this. As you can see, when you go to add a new question, we've also got a section. And the section is just, as you'd imagine, it's literally just, you can group questions into sections. So I can go section there and I can just give each section a title and a description and a picture, and everything's just grouped together. So if I go back to question 1 and I go to branching, you can see here, if they've answered cake, where do I go next? I can send them straight to the end of the form. I can send them to the next question. I can send them to a specific question, or I can send them to a section. So as you can see, that branching just allows you that no matter what people have answered, you can send them off somewhere else within the form. Sections, I'll be honest, of all the forms I've done, I've never used multiple sections yet. That's not to say that you won't ever use them. It's purely a personal choice. But the option is there. You can see, because I added section 2, it's already added in. It's already taken the first bit and added it to section 1. And as you can see, we can now remove the section, the entire section, or just the section, or the section and the questions. I can move it or I can duplicate it. Yeah, so you'll tend to find, if you're doing a complicated branching questionnaire, that sections will help you. I haven't had need to do that, which is probably why I've never used them. But that option is there. I think we're about done, actually. I can't think of anything else we need to cover. If you have got, I'll stay online for a couple of seconds. If you have got any questions, just pop them in the Q&A, and I'll answer them just before we go. I hope you found that useful, folks. It's a useful little thing to have forms within Office 365. There are obviously third-party apps which you can use for this, and third-party websites. Where I'd be wary of doing that is, again, it depends what information you're bringing in. If this could be classed as sensitive information, if you're asking for parents' names and email addresses and things like that, you're not entirely sure where some of these third-party apps keep their data, and under GDPR you do need to be able to state where it's kept. Obviously, being within the Office 365 platform, we know it's GDPR compliant. So really, if you're doing anything in school, then use forms. I've just got one question. I'm just reading it. If you know. Okay, that's a good question. If you've got a text question, you realise the answers they've written, you should have put in the right answer. Does it class it as being the correct answer? No, I don't think it does. Which is why when you're doing a quiz, I would really steer clear of those text answers. If you can make it a number, then obviously you're on safer ground, and that's probably the one time I'd use it. But what I'd also do in that respect, so let's say we had a question: what is 100 plus 50? Obviously, the answer is 150. What I'd be tempted to do there is use a subtitle and put enter your answer as a number, for instance. And in that regard, I think you're kind of okay. You can obviously, as well with that, use the restrictions and the maths. So enter your answer as a number. There you go. And the restrictions, you can kind of make things, less than or greater than, that sort of thing. But that's kind of forcing. So if you put it has to be less than or equal to 151, for instance, they wouldn't be able to enter 152. Is the way that works. But again, these text answers can be very problematic. Let's put it that way. It's why when they're doing forms, they tend to use multiple choice, all these ranking ones, because they're a definite right or wrong. Is that okay then, folks? I think I'm getting a nod. Wonderful. So that was the forms event, folks. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found that useful. In about a week or so, I think it's next Thursday, I'm not entirely sure without looking at my diary, we're doing an event on OneNote. OneNote is essentially a note-taking app within Office 365. It's like a LibreArch file, but it's the best LibreArch file you've ever had. It also integrates very well into Teams. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and I'll be showing you how to use that next Thursday, I believe it is. And then I think it's the Monday after, we're doing Microsoft Sway, which is a way of sending out newsletters and information and training materials and things. And like forms, it's all done in a web browser. It's incredibly powerful. Schools are using it a lot for their newsletters. And it means that instead of having to print out 500 copies of your newsletter, you just have to send out one link as a sway. Thursday the 14th is the one for OneNote, and Tuesday the 19th is the one for Sway. Both of those start at 10, and they'll be wrapped up for kind of midday at the latest, if not about this time, about 11 o'clock. So thank you for joining us, folks. As you can see, there's a couple of Twitter handles on there. There's the eServices one, and there's my own. This isn't a kind of one-off thing. We don't just tell you this and leave you to fend for yourself. If you've got any questions, then please hit us up on Twitter. A video of this event will be available on our YouTube channel at some point this afternoon or tomorrow at the latest. And we'll post a link to that from the eServices Twitter account and my own Twitter account. And also, if you go to eservices.co.uk/events, there'll be a link to that and all the future events on there as well. Thank you again for joining us. Like I say, I hope you found that useful, and fingers crossed I'll see you next Thursday for OneNote. Cheers. Bye.